I suggest that we start in a minute. Okay, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this online seminar on Bonaire, Sint Eustatius Saba Strategic Partnerships for Sustainable Development seminar. My name is Michel Rademaker and I'm the Deputy Director of the Hague Center for Strategic Studies. And I will be your moderator today. We will record this session to make a nice synopsis at the end with some extra information in it based on the report that we were asked to write for the Special Envoy of the islands. And we hope actually to have a successful seminar today. Some 170 people subscribed to this event. So hopefully in a couple of minutes, more and more people will join us. But let me take you through the agenda of today. So after my introduction, I'll hand over to the Special Envoy of the Islands, Mr. Edison Rijna, after which Ms. Benedetta Girardi will present some of the findings of this research we did. And also I would like to ask you to keep your smartphones at hand afterwards, because we will do a kind of survey. We would like to ask you to answer some questions using Mentimeter. We will explain later how that works. And we will use these answers to these questions where possible to enhance the report still. So the report, as far as understood, has been distributed to all the participants. It's a kind of final draft, but hopefully today we get still some insight from you that would strengthen the report even further. And of course, during the event, at certain times, we would give you the floor to also ask short and snappy questions. I'll be the chief whip, so to say, so I'll keep time, and I have to be strict, especially when so many people will join us. But without further ado, I would like to introduce Mr. Edison Rijna, the Special Envoy of Bonaire, Sint Eustatius and Saba. Please, sir, the floor is yours.
Yes. Can you hear me? Yes, okay. Good day, all. My name is Edison Rijna. I'm the Special Envoy for Bonaire, Sint Eustatius and Saba. I'm on behalf of the Ministry of Interior Affairs and Kingdom Relations. My responsibilities for these three islands are, first of all, in European Union funding departments, which I seek funding for the projects on our beautiful islands. Also, I have a responsibility at the United Nations, where we are part of several networks, where we do a lot of participation in these networks for the islands. And thirdly, one of my third responsibility is to develop trade and economies of these islands in the region of Latin America and Caribbean. And it is in this last part of my responsibility that we approach the HCSS Center for Strategic Studies to conduct a study on the value of our islands for the region, for themselves, for the kingdom, and also for instance, the institutions like European Union, the United Nations, and also the Caribbean as a whole. So, and the reason and also the objective we want to get out of this study is to stress on the values of these islands instead of the challenges that these islands are going through. Like, for instance, for Bonaire, we would like to stress the biodiversity. Just an example, the biodiversity and conservation strategies that have been in place for many years, and like also the renewable energies on Sint Eustatius, or the agriculture and fishing activities of Saba, which are all the positive sides of these islands, which can contribute to the region as a whole. So that was also the reason why we approached Access Center for Strategic Studies for this study, in order for us to present a report which we can show all entities and stakeholders when they approach these islands, see that there is value instead of only challenges as it has been seen up till now. So without further ado, I wish everybody a good webinar, and I hope on your contribution to the study, so we can all get the best report on how to develop our beautiful islands in the region, and for the reasons and objectives that I mentioned. Thank you, and see you later.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Rijna. And I would suggest that we introduce Benedetta Girardi. Benedetta is a strategic analyst at the Hague Center for Strategic Studies. Amongst others, she does studies on the Indo-Pacific, but she's also one of the co-authors of the report you received earlier. And I would like Benedetta for us to take the floor and explain a bit on parts of the content of the report. So please, Benedetta, the floor is yours.
Hi, thank you so much, Michel. Very nice to have here everybody today. Maybe let me share my screen for some slides. Yeah, I hope everyone can see my screen. So as Michel already said, we at the Hague Center for Strategic Studies, we conducted a study on the island. I'm just having some difficulties changing the slides. Let me try again. Okay. Yeah, this should be going a bit smoother. Yes, and today I would like to present to you attendees the results of these studies, as has been already mentioned by Michel and Edison. So we started this study to look into the value of these islands. But before we move on to that, we think it's very important to provide some context on the background of this island. So Bonaire, Sint Eustatius, and Saba are actually special municipalities of the Netherlands located in the Caribbean, and they are hence part of the Kingdom of the Netherlands. In virtue of this, they are also part of the EU, and in particular as overseas countries and territories of the EU. These islands have a very distinctive geographic and economic traits, and they, for these reasons, and they are value added to not only the Kingdom of the Netherlands, but the EU, and bring with them very interesting characteristics that could be better integrated in international networks. The islands are in fact located in a very special position. They are in the Caribbean, which means they're close by very interesting players in Latin America, but also the US, while being part of the Kingdom of the Netherlands and the EU. So there is much that these islands can actually have to offer to the kingdom, and a lot that can be done in terms of sustainability, biodiversity, and so on. Before diving in general into the value of these islands as a collective of three, we also want to make sure that we give you a proper background, and this is also what we've done in our report on the individual islands. So on the screen right now, you can see some interesting data from the island of Bonaire. The island of Bonaire is the biggest geographically in terms of surface and population of the three islands, with around 24,000 inhabitants, and it has different diverse economy based on, among other things, tourism, public administration, education, health, but also companies that work in construction and retails are present on the island. This island has been investing, for example, in renewable energies, with the total electricity generation of renewables in 2022 going up to 21%. And is also in close contact with international parties, for example, through FDI and commerce. Now, Bonaire as an island has also some specificity that make it an island with intrinsic value added for the Kingdom of the Netherlands, the EU, and other strategic partners. In particular, when it comes to Bonaire, ecotourism has really come to prominence, as the island is one of the top destinations for environmentally conscious tourists, and has been emerged really as at the vanguard of the pioneering of ecotourism. This is also because the island of Bonaire pays particular attention to biodiversity and conservation. It has not only a rich marine biodiversity landscape, but also makes constant efforts to preserve this biodiversity and to make it accessible in an environmentally conscious way. And part of this effort is also the effort of Bonaire when it comes to sustainability, in particular in promoting renewable energy initiatives, reef restoration projects, and environmental conservation. And as I already mentioned before, the island has been doing a lot of projects and initiatives on renewable energy in particular. Currently, renewable energy, especially when it comes to solar and wind power, has taken a significant portion of the total electricity production. And this helps with the general value that Bonaire has of sustainability, promoter of sustainability, biodiversity, and ecotourism. As we all know, renewable and sustainable energy is now at the forefront of such effort worldwide. The value of Bonaire is, however, not limited exclusively to themes related to sustainability and biodiversity. Bonaire is also a lead producer of high quality salt, for example, and it has been at the center of projects for innovation of infrastructure, among which the Galileo sensor station. We also have, of course, the island of Sint Eustatius. This is the second island that surface and population, and has, as with Bonaire, it has different employment sectors, and also a focus on renewable energy and partnership through FDI, for example. And naturally, Sint Eustatius also has his strong point in its values. For example, as I mentioned for Bonaire, Sint Eustatius is also involved in the promotion of ecotourism and environmental conservation, especially with its commitment to the protection of what are the values of the islands, and as well in the production of renewable energy, as well as overall efforts in sustainable development. Lastly, we have the island of Saba, smaller but definitely not less important of the three islands, where tourism, retail, construction, education, and public administration are really the main sectors of the island economy. And I think we can notice here, as well as in the other islands, that there is a great focus on the promotion of electricity generation through renewable energy. Saba is also, as the other two islands, is also focused on sustainability and promoting its natural beauty and pristine nature through tourism and ecotourism. But also Saba also have the university School of Medicine, which attracts increasingly international students, and also an added value in its agriculture, fishing, and artisanal activities that are at the center of the island economy. So now that you have an overview of the island's activity and their added value, I would also like to point out that these islands do have active engagement with a series of key partners and are looking, of course, into expanding this cooperation with key partners. Of course, the results of our study show that a very important partner for these islands is the government of the Netherlands, clearly as they are part of the kingdom, as well as the European Union. However, the islands also cooperate with the United States, and as Edison was already remarking before, the United States of America and various Latin American and Caribbean countries, especially Colombia, Panama, the Dominican Republic, Suriname, and Trinidad and Tobago. And they do so across 4 main areas. The first area is climate change, environmental protection, waste, energy, and water. Here there are different partnerships on one-on-one bilateral partnership, but also in the context of international organization to protect the biodiversity, but also to better manage the use of energy, waste, and water. Another sector in which the islands cooperate with their key partners is connectivity, both in terms of digital connectivity, access to internet, etc., but also in terms of infrastructure when it comes to air and sea. Bonaire, just for example, renovated its airports and has international connection established, for example, with Bogota, Colombia, and there is ongoing works as well in all the islands for when it comes to ameliorating this infrastructure and especially connecting better with these partners. A third area of cooperation with key partners is food security. To make sense, of course, there are small islands in the middle of the Caribbean, so food security is a very important factor, and cooperating with key partners in this area is fundamental to ensure access and security of food for everybody. And lastly, of course, economic diversification. As we saw before, there are some main sectors that these islands are exploiting as their economic income. However, the islands are continuously in search of diversification to expand their economy and strengthen it. They start from a very good base, as we already see, but there is much that can be done with key partners in order to achieve this higher level of economic diversification across the 3 islands. So in our study, we collected a series of bilateral and multilateral initiatives across all 3 islands and also across all 4 of these main categories. And we study where the value of the island comes in when it comes to these areas and cooperation with the strategic partners that you have seen in the prior slides, as well as where opportunity exists to furthering partnerships and strengthening this strategic partnership, as we called them at the beginning, for a more sustainable development of the islands. And lastly, of course, we also highlighted some of the challenges. So let me present to you our main findings. What it is clear from our research on the BES Island is that these islands have great added value. They have a unique positioning as part of the Kingdom of the Netherlands, but also and the EU, but also close by Latin America and the USA. And they are also specific and unique environmental characteristics. that can really position them in global networks as a hub of ecotourism and climate change innovations. In fact, we believe one of the value of the best islands is that they can become hubs for the pioneering of marine conservation and restoration technique due to, again, the particular ecosystems and biodiversity that very little other places on Earth has. They are also, because of their geographical positioning, can be extremely valuable as points of transshipment of resources. So they can act as connector, especially with developing connectivities in between neighboring country and the EU alike. And we also cannot forget the added value of the diversity of population in these islands. Most of the people on these islands speak up to 4 languages: English, Dutch, Papiamento, and Spanish. And so they can bring definitely value to the research and the market. Here is where, considering this value, here is where the opportunities really come in for these strategic partnerships with the islands. In fact, there is definitely room for increasing the exchange of technical know-how, knowledge, and expertise between the key partners and the islands of Bonaire, Sint Eustatius, and Saba. Furthermore, additional involvement in the Dutch, EU, and also regional processes through forums and funding schemes could greatly benefit the sustainable development of the island while tightening strategic partnership. At the same time, there is opportunities for increased work on the conservation and natural ecosystems, which are a very important topic in the uncertainty of today's world and climate change, as well as strengthening the infrastructure and connectivity. There is certainly work to be done for between the islands and their strategic partner to improve these aspects, as well as to support the local food production, for example. And last but not least, there are great opportunities by involving in different schemes, funds, and forums. By involving the islands in these schemes, funds, and forums, there is great opportunity for economic diversifications. Now, if we take the value and the opportunities, we really realize that there is much that can be done with the islands and their strategic partners, which are fundamental, of course. There are also, of course, a set of challenges, among which, of course, the geographic remoteness of the islands and the smaller scale of their economy, as well as the lack of direct memberships in a lot of forums in which they are represented via the Kingdom of the Netherlands. Of course, reduced population also means difficulties in keeping up with large bureaucratic processes and implementation conditions of funds and grants. And this also has some administrative challenges. However, we also believe that these challenges can be addressed through a tightening of the strategic partnerships that are based on the added value that the islands have for their strategic partners. I am happy to leave it at that, so that we have enough time for the interactive feedback.
Well, thank you so much, Benedetta. Maybe there are 1 or 2 very short questions by the participants. So if someone wants to raise a question, please use the system to virtually raise your hand, and then there might be an opportunity to ask a question. If there are no questions, then we'll continue. So far, I don't see any questions raised, so I suppose it's a clear story so far. Then I would suggest that you all take your smartphone, because we're going to use what we call Mentimeter, which is quite a nice interactive tool to ask you some questions, and I hope that you will join us. So I think Benedetta, you can show the screen. To have us start with Menti. Okay, here we are. So we're gonna do a interactive survey actually. So you can either go to menti.com or you can use the QR code and you'll automatically come at the right place on the site. If you go to menti.com, you need to type in the code, which is 65811735. And I see a lot of thumbs up, meaning that people are getting into the system. So let's wait for a little while. So it's interactive. That means for those that are not familiar with Mentimeter, the results are anonymous, but at the same time you'll see the statistics. So we ask you a certain set of questions in such a way that it's quite intuitive, and that some of the results might also be useful to integrate either in the video at some point and or in the report. And so your contribution is very useful for us to encounter and to maybe also use some of it in the wrapping up of the report. So far, I see 23 people joining. I think that's a little bit less than I hoped for, but it's up to you. I cannot force you to do so. There's another 24 now. So 25, it's going up, great. It means also that by every question that we're going to ask you is before it is submitted to the platform, you have to push the button submit. So sometimes people think they're ready, but they forget to push the button submit. Anyway, I think for this moment, we have now 26 participants joining the menti.com, 27. I suggest that we start with the next sheet. So first question is, where are you based?
Het is 15 uur.
And don't forget to submit. Well, we can already see that there's an interest from Europe and the Netherlands, of course, and in the Caribbean, of course, but I think even Spain or Portugal. It shows a bit of the diversity of participants across the world. And we are already at 32 participants now, 34 even, great. So there's enthusiasm to join this survey. 37. So this is great. 40. Okay. 41. Okay, so 42. I'm still giving everybody the chance to join and submit their allocation or their location, I should say. Okay, so we have 42. Great. So I suggest let's go to the next question. Which sector do you work in? Okay. So we have one from an EU institution, a couple from international institution, organizations, NGOs, private sector. So one of the takeaways maybe is also for, say, later on, maybe outreach, is that we should try to get more people from international organizations, the EU institutions and others involved, because they are target audience. So I think this is a takeaway anyway, that part of the outreach done by the Special Envoy and his team could be to get more into the networks that are of, say, a target audience for the islands to get on board. Okay, thank you so much. Next sheet, please. How do you describe the value of Bonaire, Sint Eustatius, and Saba? You can just fill in short text here. And then don't forget to submit again. Interesting is I see the word living labs. That's an interesting one. Authenticity. Yeah, so it shows anyway that so the bigger the words, the more people use the same kind of words. So it's unique, it's nature, biodiversity, some words on geopolitics. It's also interesting, renewable energy, of course, untapped, unspoiled, interesting observations. And there's potential. I think that's also an important observation, I think. These word clouds are often interesting because they all often reflect the first ideas that people have thinking about a certain issue. So this is interesting result already. Okay, so we have 40 people submitted a word or a short sentence. And I suggest that we go to the next question. How important is international cooperation with the EU, UN, etc., for the sustainable development of the islands? Okay, this is a significant result. So at least the people joining this seminar think it's extremely important to have international cooperation. That's a good observation, I think, and at the same time, as we concluded at one of the earlier questions, that from the audience so far, there's little participation of international organizations, so that's something to think of how in the future enhance that participation. Okay, thank you so much. Next question. Rank these statements. The islands should seek more political and/or economic autonomy in order to better cater for local needs. The islands should seek to strengthen international partnerships to cater to local needs. The Dutch government should invest more in the islands' development. And the islands should prioritize becoming testing grounds for sustainable innovation initiatives. And I think that relates to the word in the word clouds on living labs. And you can either strongly agree or strongly disagree. And already some people I see have submitted their votes. I think it's a 5-point scale. What I observe is that the first question, whether or not the island should be more economically autonomous, is something that most people do not give priority. But the investment in the islands, international partnerships, and testing grounds do have a significant score, I would say. Okay, so I think we are at 39, 40 now. Great. Okay, so I think 41 people are picking it up again. I think we still have 1 or 2 questions, isn't it, Benna? Which of the following should be the top priority for EU funding on the islands? These were the 4, say, opportunities or focus areas, I should say, where investments would be very useful. Yeah, so it's climate change and I think connectivity and economic diversification do swap. Second priorities. Okay, so we had 40. So definitely climate change, environmental protection, waste, energy and water is a prime topic for EU funding potential. Okay, thank you so much. Next, how can the Dutch government best support Bonaire, Sint Eustatius and Saba in boosting their international network positioning? Facilitating resources, helping outreach and diplomacy, enhancing infrastructure development, or by fostering economic partnerships. Yeah, so number 1, again, I think scores high is the fostering of economic partnerships. I could mention that has to do with the EU, but also with other organizations. And therefore, again, I think it's so important to have the islands positioned, actively positioned and well seen in the international networks. Okay, so that's another, I think, clear distinction for the number 1 priority. Okay, thank you. Who do you believe is the biggest benefit of increased participation in regional and or international platforms for Bonaire, Sint Eustatius and Saba? Knowledge exchange, increased resilience, access to funding and resources, or improved political visibility? So access to funding and resources and knowledge exchange are close by. Number 1 or 2. But access to funding is the winner at this point. Okay, 39 voters. So maybe the last 1 or 2. Please submit your choice. Okay. Next question, probably. What is the most crucial factor for the islands to achieve sustainable development in the future? Is it international partnerships, accessing international funding, building local capacity and expertise? Or is it innovation in environmental and climate practices? Yeah, so local capacity and expertise. That I think is a very important one because, and I understand that position, because you of course can ask for funding, but in the end it has to be the local population to make that investment work. And for that, indeed, you need local capacity and expertise. Okay. Crucial factor. Okay. We have quite some answers already. Benedetta, do we still have another question?
Yeah, we have 2 more, but they're quick ones.
Okay. Okay. Please go ahead for the next question. What other elements are crucial for the island's sustainable development in the future? And again, this is an open question, so you can put in a couple of words. And again, I think we'll have a word cloud. Yeah, what I find interesting already is the first one coming up with this long-term planning. I think that will be interesting to indeed make a long-term plan where the ideas so far anticipated could be part of, I think. Knowledge, funding, collaboration, and capacity building. I see an interesting one as well. It's called Sisters Islands. Visibility, manpower, partnerships, less politics. That's always difficult to have less politics, but might be useful. Okay. I think we are done. Yeah, okay. What do you think is the biggest challenge facing Bonaire, Sint Eustatius and Saba in their efforts towards sustainable development? Okay. Limited local capacity is by far the biggest challenge. Okay. Small islands, of course, there's always a capacity gap with what you want and what you need versus ambitions, I guess. Great. Okay. Well, thank you so much. And I think, oh, this is the last one. Sorry. What do you see as the biggest value of the islands? I think, Benna, this is the last question, then, isn't it?
Yes, we wanted to go back to the original theme, which
Yes.
is the value of the islands.
Yeah, maybe you came to other conclusions or came up with extra ideas. So maybe again, would be interesting to see whether you see other values or opportunities. Okay. I think it's quite consistent with the earlier answers. Could imagine that some of the people joining us today are convinced. So, but there's consistency here, and that's, I think, good news. We are, I think, more or less done. We are at 32. So if there are no submissions anymore, I think we're done with the Mentimeter. So thank you so much so far. And I now would like to invite everybody, including Edison and others of the panel or the participants joining on our side, to open the floor for Q&A. So if Edison and or Bianca could also open up their cameras, then it's easier for everybody to join the discussions. So maybe first, before we start the Q&A itself, maybe Edison, you have maybe some first idea or observation of what you've seen so far.
Yes. Thank you, Michel. Let me start by thanking everyone who actively participate in the Mentimeter and also in the coming moments that we still have together. My impression is that I see a lot of necessities that we as a Special Envoy are also already focusing on. I see the importance of having relationships with international institutions, and I'm glad to see also that people are willing to build in local capacity and expertise on the island, which we also want, and also diversify the economy in order for these islands to develop. So for now, I'm quite happy with the reactions, and I'm awaiting now how the discussion will unfold on the matters at hand.
Okay, thank you so much. So it's I think now up to the participants to try and join us, and I think if it's possible, Benedetta, when someone wants to ask a question, to also put on the camera, so that would be nicer to have the discussions. But
Yeah,
maybe
we also have some questions in the Q&A for now, Michel.
Okay, in the Q&A. Okay, let's see. First one is from Adnan Hassan. Did you do a cost analysis of the opportunities? Question is no. At this point, no. That will be an interesting one indeed. But I could imagine that might be a question that could also be answered by Edison in a way that do you foresee having this kind of analysis done, or are there some numbers already that we are not aware of?
I can say that, of course, this is the initial report and initial research that we are doing. And I think based on the results of this report, we will look into some strategic takeaways that we will present to stakeholders. And based on that, I think we will do also cost analysis on those choices that we are going to make. So I think the next step will be one of those further in-depth cost analysis researches to be done. But at this moment, we didn't include that in this research.
Okay. There's a question from Maarten van der Scheer. Well, he has a couple of them, but I think he says, I missed the relation with CAS. CAS. Maybe Edison, you can explain, or?
On mute. Yes, that's a good one. Of course, we historically have relations with our sister islands, Curaçao, Aruba, and Saba. As the Special Envoy is now constituted, it's as I'm working for the ministry, Dutch Ministry of Internal Affairs and Kingdom Relation, we can also only do this for the Bonaire, Sint Eustatius, and Saba islands. And of course, we are open for any collaboration with the CAS islands. And historically, it has been like that. We also would like to have that, but this initiative also has to come from these islands. And in a way, it's already been done. We are looking into possibilities of a, you can call it how it used to be in the Netherlands and Antilles for customs and traveling of people and goods. Those are some of the issues that we are tapping into right now, but the cooperation should come also from their side. In that sense, we are more than willing and always looking into collaboration with the CAS islands, which hopefully in the future will become reality. So we're open and looking into that.
Okay, thank you so much. I'll come back to a couple of other questions in between, but there's Ms. Alida Francis. How will the work being done by the EU envoy align with the representation office the islands are currently planning? I think, again, that's one for you, Edison, but you're muted.
I'm trying to look into the because I didn't get the question, which is how will the work being done by you align with the representation office? Yeah, that's a good point. The Special Envoy has the way we work now. We have on each island we have a representation office, and on Saba and Station we have the EU desks that are currently assisting the local information requests that are getting in. And in Bonaire, we have the international desk, which do the same work. And the idea is to strengthen these representation offices on these islands in order to receive more requests and petitions in order for us as a Special Envoy to react on those and help them. So it is already in place, and it's need more sustainability in those offices that we as Special Envoy see and are currently putting into.
Okay.
I hope that answers the questions.
Okay, thank you. There's a more, I would say, governmental or governance kind of question. Do you think Bonaire, Sint Eustatius and Saba would benefit from changing its status in the European Union from landen met gebiedsdelen overseas versus ultra-perifere gebieden? I don't know, but maybe you have an opinion there.
It's a interesting question, and it's bordering political questions, but I will go for cherry picking. I mean, get the best that you can get out of the relationship you have right now. Changing to a UPG, UPG is not easy, and it's not as simple as everybody might think. But it's not in my position to have a say in that. But I would suggest for the analysts to right now the position we are in, use the most benefits that we can have of this current structure that we are in, and maybe look into the future to become UPG. But it's not easy. This kind of investigation and research has been done extensively in the past, and it shows that it's not only benefits, but also some very steep obligations that comes with the UPG status. So we have to look into this, and in the meantime, make the best of the situation we are currently in. And that's how we as a Special Envoy are also trying to help in this.
Okay. I think there's also a couple of questions with regard to the report. I think that it was shared, or at least the potential was there, but I'm not sure that everybody received it. Anyway, we plan to have it released in October anyway, in the full-fledged final version. So at that time anyway, it will be available to everybody. Or maybe Benedetta, you have some additions to make on this one.
Yeah, maybe I can just also take together some of the other question of things missing from the sheet you saw, such as station's ambitions to focus on cultural heritage or the completion of the Stuco Solar Park. I can just take a bit of this all together, just for saying that the report has not been shared yet, because we will include, of course, the outcome of this webinar into the report. So there will be a public version, as Michel already said, available in October. And I would also like to say that in the report, we go much more into detail for every island. So for also some of the suggestions in the Q&A were to have an island by island approach. The report is, of course, much more extensive. It's almost 40 pages of research. So it has also an island by island approach, accounting for the diversity of these islands. I just presented to you the current common takeaways and the commonalities, but there are opportunities looked into for each of the different islands, and we also go much more into details of ongoing focuses and projects on the individual islands. So I would like to use a bit of a cheesy phrase, but stay tuned for the actual release of the report, because most of these details are actually contained in the 40-page long analysis that we have there.
Okay, thank you. I see a couple of other questions. We might not be able to address them all, but still we have a bit of time. I think Ms. Alida Francis asked another question, and that has to do with the roadmap to Eustatia 2026, which is a major program to promote the 250th anniversary of the first salute. Not sure that it was taken up into the report, or maybe Edison, you could give it some light on what you see.
Yes.
With this remark.
Yes, of course. It's a very important remark that the heritage of our islands are very important for themselves and the region, and also for all the international establishments that we are part of. And I think this webinar is there for these kind of suggestions to be presented, so we can include them in this report, fortifying what we have already been picking, and it helps also the Hague Center for Strategic Studies to complete the report and also the research they're doing. And I do believe that heritage should be also part of this. It's a strength, it's a value for our islands, and Statia is one of the biggest one, showing that in the future with the first salute heritage that will be done in a couple of years. So that's another some example of what the value of these islands are, and great suggestions, Alida, and we will definitely take this into the report.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm just skimming the questions. There's a question from Matthijs. Basic island needs such as waste management, food, and climate resilience and biodiversity conservation will always require funding, as the business cases for investment cannot be closed. Well, that's a statement. Do we foresee, or someone of the audience foresee, that this is like it is stated, or is this something that we can overcome, because really make it a business case instead of a value case that still needs money or investment from outside funders? So basically, the statement of Matthijs is basically, okay, we have plans, but we need foreign investments, probably from either governments or others, to make this work. The ideal solution, of course, in the end, would be that it is indeed a business case, basically meaning after a certain level of investment, it should be able to drive by itself. But so what is the estimate at this point, Edison? Do you have any suggestions or ideas?
Yeah, the mere existence of the Special Envoy, it's a proof of that. I mean, before our existence, all the possibilities for funding from either EU or networking with United Nations for our best islands were minimal or non-existent. So the possibilities for funding are now much more realistic, and also the possibilities are there. And I know for a fact that like other islands, like the French, they get more out of these institutions than the Dutch islands. And I hope that with the Special Envoy, we can definitely tap into more funding possibilities for these islands, and making business cases soluble as we want to. So I think we have quite some work to do as a Special Envoy, and it's in our objectives, and we will work very hard into attaining that for the future of our islands.
Okay, so I see a hand raised by Ms. Alida Francis. So maybe there's possibility, Benedetta, to have the camera.
Yeah, not the camera, but the voice. Yeah.
The voice. Okay, please go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Just a point of importance in the discussion with the Netherlands as well as the EU is that these islands are very small islands, Saba, Statia, and Bonaire. And the daily management is done by executive councils, which work and the decision-making is very collegial. On the other hand, the ministries in the Netherlands, they work as organizations within the central government, and they can make their own decisions. And oftentimes we notice that in the decision making, the coordination requires a lot more attention. I can give an example of what we call a coordination. We just addressed this last week in the Netherlands. We have a tax plan that is being implemented while the recently implemented social minimum, the evaluation still needs to take place. But we already know that a tax plan will be implemented, but there has been no consideration for the outcomes of the effects of the social minimum. So that is what I mean with the coordination. What role can we expect the envoy to play in addition to the Ministry of BZK?
Okay. So I think this is a question then for Mr. Rijna.
Yes, I'm here. Yes, the Special Envoy has as I mentioned, three objectives. It's EU funding, UN funding, and also the economic and trade development in the region. However, we have, I mentioned it, a fourth objective in which we are kind of an intermediary between the islands and the Dutch ministries. So in that case, we do have, although it's not formal and official, we do at times talk to ministries and not taking away the responsibility of the island councils and the island executive councils. We do also work as how you call it, a intermediary when issues which are not fully handled according to what we as islanders can look at it. We try to bring that over to the Dutch, to the Hague, in order for them to take the correct decision or make the correct decision for our islands. So that's the role that the Special Envoy can play. We don't have any political mandate, so in that sense, we are more like colleagues from the Dutch ministries who are based in the islands. We feel the islands, we know what's happening on the islands, and that's what we want to bring over to the policymakers in order when they are making their decisions, they take that into consideration. And we do listen to the islands, and when the islands mention this, we echo this back in the ministries, as we have been doing up till now. So that's how we as Special Envoy operate as well.
Okay, thank you so much. Looking at the clock a little bit, we still have a 5-6 minutes to go. So I think I'll try to wrap up a little bit already, and or see whether or not I have already kind of summary of some takeaways that came up from especially Mentimeter. So let me try to summarize. I think there's urgency made by the participants that the outreach to international organizations should be strengthened, which I think also where the Special Envoy is for. And to pose international cooperation at the center of sustainable development with key partners. I think that's another one that you could conclude on. The third one is focus on areas of cooperation with the EU that could be and should be on climate change and environmental protection, because that on the one hand there's a necessity, but there's also this economic potential at the same time. So I think that's a kind of goes hand in hand with the ambitions as well as the opportunities of all the three islands. And building local capacity goes hand in hand with international partnerships to achieve this sustainable development. So I think that might be another one, especially when the populations of the smallest islands are limited. I think there should be we should look into potential to extend it in one way or the other. I'm not sure how I should phrase that, but I think that's another one. So ambition probably comes also with the need for some more capacity, and that is, I think, something that that the islands need some strengthening if possible, either by having third parties participate, but I could also imagine that too much influence from outside would also not work too well for the islands. So these are, I think, 4 of my first takeaways. Maybe Edison, you would like to reflect on it, or maybe, and I think for that there's opportunity to also show a last sheet. I think we have, Benedetta, that you, Edison, might also use to explain to the audience a bit what next.
Yes, let me just reflect. Let me see, is my camera on? Yes. But next to what I'm just going to mention, Michel, I agree totally, as you say, that we have to look for development of these islands into the cooperation with organizations abroad. However, I also think something is very important for us to realize, and this is also where we should start investing, is our own nation building. Our own people should be able to help our islands and invest in themselves and come back to our islands to help develop it. And when you're here on the island, you can use these international institutions as a son of soil, like they call it, to develop your own island. So in that sense, it is important also that besides the relationships with the international establishments, that the entities to also give attention and focus to our own nation building for the futures of these islands. I also would like to remark that everything that we have discussed today will be included in the research and in the report. And should there have any more insights that you want to share with us or with the HCSS, you can send an email to the tech support at hcss.nl. It's mentioned here on the sheet. And I think I also saw some of the questions which are also very important that we will take consideration when finishing the report. And the report will be expected in October. And as we already mentioned, this will be available online and amongst others via our LinkedIn page. I would like also to invite everyone to visit that page or our website, cabinetspecialenvoy.com, where you can find all the information here regarding this report, which will be published in October. And of course, based on this report, we will discuss as mentioned before, the possible strategic implementation lines with different partners and stakeholders for the development of our objectives in the region, and also for the European Union and for the kingdom, the Dutch kingdom. So your contribution is very valuable. We really appreciate it, and we encourage you to keep sending this information and how we can further increase the value. First of all, show it, and secondly, increase it for the sake of our own islands, Bonaire, Sint Eustatius, and Saba. That's my final takeout, Michel.
Well, thank you so much. And looking at the clock, we are more or less sharp on time. So I would like to thank everybody for the active participation. We did not address in the discussions all questions, but I think most of them were addressed. And as Edison said, the tech support at hcss.nl is still open. So without further ado, I think I would like to thank Edison, please, for having asked us to do the report. At the same time, also like to thank you and your team, of course, for the excellent collaboration, and looking forward to keep in touch, of course, while wrapping up the report. Benedetta, thank you so much for your presentation as well. And I wish everybody a good day for the rest of the day, either in the morning or in the evening. See you all. Bye-bye.
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 Bye.